Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 101 Great Goals for this week's Talking Points, where we talk through the biggest talking points in football. And this week, I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Dale O'Donnell. Dale, huge Manchester United fan. Thank you so much for joining us, especially ahead of Manchester United's Europa League final tomorrow night as well. Just before we get into it, Dale, you looking forward to the final tomorrow?
Yeah, it's an opportunity for Solskjaer to win his first trophy. I think he needs it. It's been a good season for United. I think finishing second. If you asked the United fan at the start of the season what they wanted, you would have said definitely second place and to go further in the Champions League. But that didn't work out. Now we have an opportunity to win a trophy. So look, hopefully it ends on a positive note.
Dale's from a huge Manchester United platform called Stretty News. So if you do want to check out anything to do with Manchester United, especially ahead of the Europa League final tomorrow, make sure you go and check them out, especially with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's press conference coming up as well. So first up on the talking points, it has been everywhere, is of course Harry Kane and Tottenham in terms of where his future lies, and also where does Tottenham's future lie. So last week, Harry Kane did a few interviews saying that he didn't necessarily say he wanted to leave, but he said the conversation he has to have with Daniel Levy at Tottenham, as he wants to win trophies and he wants to play with the best players and play in the biggest fixtures. He sees that he wants a move. Dale, just how crushing is that going to be for Tottenham next season? On top of a pretty disruptive season anyway, should they lose Harry Kane?
It's huge. I think if you look at the disruptive season they just suffered, this has been coming since the summer after the Champions League final when they didn't recruit in the way they should have. I go back to the appointment of Jose Mourinho. I don't think Pochettino should have been fired there. He was the manager who created that team, and right now, after Mourinho, they're in a situation where they find it they need to create a new team, and with that comes the blow of potentially losing Harry Kane, their best player for the past know how many years. So no, it's not good. It's a crushing blow. Um, where are they going to go next? It's they're going to have to try find the replacement for Harry Kane, but they also need a manager to come in that they will trust, like they did with Pochettino, to build the next Tottenham team because they can't sit idle. They've done that for long enough, and I think by appointing Jose Mourinho when they should have been looking towards the future, they sat idle.
Yeah, we will get on to the future of Tottenham because it's a key discussion point considering who they're linked with as well. So Harry Kane this season in the Premier League, most goals, most assists. No one's ever done that before apart from Andy Cole. So already is up there with prestigious competition. He is an unbelievable footballer. How does a player score that many goals and register so many assists and be in a team where he's not winning anything? I mean, can you see exactly where Harry Kane's coming from? Because he's probably a generational talent again in terms of a striker. And if you've got that much talent, you want to win trophies.
Yeah, look, I think a few months ago when it was kind of unknown the direction Harry Kane wanted to go, it's pretty clear now he wants to leave Spurs. I think people were questioning his motives, whether he wanted to reach certain records with Tottenham or he actually wanted to go on and make a real name for himself. You look at Robin Van Persie at Arsenal, and he made a kind of a controversial move, but for him, it was to go win trophies. It was to go to be remembered. You look back at players when they retire, and what do you look at? As someone who creates content, George, for 101 great goals, when someone announces their retirement, you look back at memories like what they won. I know Harry Kane will have goal scoring records, and he's very proud of them. He's proud to represent England, to be captain, and so on. But he wants to be winning Premier League titles, Champions Leagues, and I totally understand that. We were actually, even though it's a Manchester United blog, Stretty News, we were covering the Harry Kane story for the past 2 months, and we initially broke it that if he was to leave Tottenham, that we thought that the best or the probably number one destination for him would be Chelsea because he's such a home bird. And that's still very, very much on the cards. Manchester United are interested. Man City are interested. A lot of people think he'll go to City. Look, Harry Kane is in a good situation where all the top clubs are going to want him. And come when that decision's made, I'm sure he'll have great options on the table.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable footballer. Speaking as a Man City fan, obviously you're a United fan. It just seems like any club would be interested in him. He is that good of a player. And I always allude back to the point of it's very similar to what you said. When players make media appearances after they've retired, will he want, as his little byline, broke the record for the amount of goals at Tottenham Hotspur, or would he want has won 3 Premier League titles, or has done this and done that? And I think it's the latter for most players, isn't it? They want silverware. They want photos that they can look back on and say, yeah, I did that. I won the Premier League. So it's going to be a huge story for the summer. Where do you think Harry Kane is going to end up, and what do you think of his situation? In terms of Tottenham, then, where does this leave them for the future? Because you mentioned the Champions League final. It did seem like maybe they didn't capitalise on an opportunity to cement themselves as a top 4 Champions League bracket team. So where does this leave Tottenham then? Because it seems like they're going for Roberto Martinez now as their new manager for after the Euros, because he's currently with Belgium. They've been rejected seemingly by quite a few managers now. Is Tottenham... How many years is it going to take Tottenham to rebuild from this one if they do appoint Martinez? It doesn't seem like a great appointment, if I'm being honest.
I think it's a bit of a mess right now, to be honest, what's happening at Spurs. The appointment of Jose Mourinho, again, I go back to is you can't ignore it. If that was their response to losing a manager like Pochettino and considering the work that he had done, they got to a Champions League final. You mentioned that, and it's interesting because I feel when they got that far, they were like, look at us, look how far we went. Instead of kind of saying, we lost the final, let's try and get back there and win it. And that's what all the fans would have wanted. So you have to question the people that make decisions. You have to question their motives and what they think is right. And they're clearly making the wrong ones. Roberto Martinez, yes, he has Premier League experience. But at club level, and you look at his record of work, yeah, he stayed long at the likes of Wigan and that. But it is a kind of one of those David Moyes appointments at Manchester United. What's he done at club level to warrant that job? If you want to really go back to winning or getting back to Champions League finals and actually winning a trophy, I think maybe too many managers are running away from that job, and Tottenham now aren't getting the manager that they really want. They're not in the position to get that manager. I think they've shown that in the last 2 years that a lot of top managers wouldn't go there now.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right in terms of the Champions League, because coming up this week, Manchester City are in a Champions League final. Now, if Manchester City don't win that Champions League final, they're going to be there again, probably. They're going to invest. They're going to go for it. It does seem like Tottenham were very much happy to be there, happy to say that they got there. And Daniel Levy seems like the type of person who puts financial gain over success on the pitch, because I think when he saw that Tottenham were in the Champions League final, I think he rightly so capitalised on that in a money sense, in a monetary sense, is that we are the Champions League finalists, and I'm sure he got a lot of sponsorship deals through on that point, but I don't think the playing squad was necessarily at the forefront of his mind. So in terms of Tottenham, then what do you think needs to happen there in terms of future? Because the fans want to see them challenging for titles.
Well, the fans need to realise too that when the club got to that Champions League final, they sat idle. So what they're expecting and what the club is doing is different. I don't see Spurs winning a Premier League title in the next 5 years. No way. I think this is a mess, and losing Harry Kane is a big blow. Who they're going to get to replace him and to replace his tally consistently for the past few years? It's a massive ask. And without him, you have Son, a terrific player. If Harry Kane leaves, the likes of Son could get cold feet about staying at that club as well. And I'd be worried about that. Daniel Levy could have a big task on his hands.
It's all about recruitment as well, isn't it? Because Tottenham without Harry Kane are a Europa League conference side with no Harry Kane. So it's all in terms of that. Let us know in the comments below what you think of Spurs and how you think they can get out of the mess that they're in right now. We'll move on then. Manchester City secured their 3rd Premier League title in 4 years. Sorry to bring this one up, Dale. But there's been a lot of talk about Pep Guardiola over the weekend and Sergio Aguero as well. But in terms of Pep Guardiola, there's been certain pundits that have said that he's transformed English football, and he stands as one of the Premier League's great managers now. Obviously, there's an elephant in the room that is Sir Alex Ferguson, who, let's be honest, the best and the greatest Premier League manager that ever has been. No getting away from that. But where does Pep Guardiola rank for you, Dale, in terms of how he's handled his criticisms, handled his problems at Manchester City as well, because he seems to have adapted quite well.
Yeah, well, he's the modern great. You would have to say right now he's the best manager in the world. There's no one that comes close really. I think Jurgen Klopp's another fantastic manager, but Pep Guardiola, as you mentioned, he's done at City what he's done at Bayern Munich and done at Barcelona with the style of play. He's got the team to adapt a certain way, play attractive football. And not only that, this season I think they changed that too because people questioned in the past about City's kind of defensively what they were like, but they were solid this season. And that goes a long way maybe to saying why they've done so well in Europe and to reaching that final eventually, you know. So I think, look, he's definitely one of the great managers Premier League has had. I certainly don't think he's done enough to compare with Alex Ferguson. But I think even if you were speaking to Ferguson, he'd acknowledge Guardiola as probably the best. I think maybe he's the only manager to, if you look back to the Champions League finals against Barcelona, and that really kind of stood in the way of Ferguson kind of having a period of dominating Europe. You know, that was United's probably at their best with Ronaldo, Tevez, and Rooney, and so on. And Barcelona were just too strong. And Guardiola has this masterpiece, and he stood in Ferguson's way in Europe. And maybe looking back at that, you could maybe start to compare records in Europe, but Premier League domination, Ferguson did it with so many teams, knew when to change players over a very long haul of time. And it would take Guardiola to stay at City a lot longer to compare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking from a Man City point of view, it's just been an absolute dream since he's come in. It really has. Even when we've had poor seasons, just watching how much he cares. I think that was a very surprising feature of Pep Guardiola when he came in. Just how much he cares about the club. Obviously, when he came in, he's just such a brilliant manager and he's just such a brilliant figure within football. But it just seems surreal that a manager of his caliber loved Man City as much as like maybe the fans do, and it just seems so surprising on that front. And he's just been a dream to watch, and his teams have been a dream to see as well. And I like the fact that you mentioned that he has adapted this season. He's changed his style of play. When problems have come up, he's gone on ridiculous runs without a striker. He's played as false nine. He's changed every aspect of his style, and he's still playing the Pep Guardiola style, if you get what I mean.
But what I will say about Guardiola, and I think he mentioned this in an interview with Sky after winning the league at the weekend. He said something along the lines about pundits thinking that City are just a club that throw money, and that's why they're winning things. And his point behind that, and you have to give City some credit for it, is before he took charge at City, they were planning for it for a long, long time. And they were recruiting individuals who were working the structure of the club from people at Barcelona. And this was being built for Guardiola. And Pellegrini, I think most City fans would say he didn't deserve to be sacked. Or he would have got a new contract. He was doing a good job. But Guardiola was available then. And what they were building towards, it was the next step. And he came in and he's done a fantastic job. But what he was getting to in that interview was it's not just down to him. It's not just down to him being manager and all this money being thrown at him. He's in a very lucky position that he's at a club that is tailored for his needs. And there's the right people working there. You can see next season, you know, you look at clubs are chasing City right now and the money that they'll probably spend the same amount of money as City. But City will just strengthen and get stronger and stronger and stronger. And that's the position Guardiola is in. He is the best manager in the league, but he also has probably the best functioning club in the league as well, which is it goes in his favour massively.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're 100% right. You know, that getting in Tiki Bergestein, getting in Ferran Soriano, having a whole backlog of Guardiola allies and friends just everywhere in the background. Yeah, it was working towards getting Pep in. And I think the reason why we've seen Pep enjoy himself and stay longer than he has at any other club, he gets everything that he wants. He feels loved, and he said that himself when he didn't win the title in his first season. He was expecting them to be a bit funny with him, but the board were just so happy to have Pep there that they knew that they were on the right process. And it does seem like sometimes it feels like Man City do get tarnished, like you say, with the brush of it's just money. But the way that they've spent the money and what they've actually done with it in terms of the whole club is just, it's mesmerising. He's absolutely fantastic to see as a Man City fan as well. So what do you think of how Pep Guardiola has handled the Premier League? 3 titles, 4 years. Can he win the Champions League on Saturday? Let us know in the comments below. So finally then, England's preliminary squad has been announced. Not Dale's favourite topic, the Euros, but we'll crack on anyway. So England's preliminary squad has been announced. He's got to cut 7 out of it. As a Manchester United fan, we'll start with Aaron Wan-Bissaka didn't get the nod. England notoriously got so many good fullbacks. Were you surprised by that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he hasn't been selected beforehand, and yeah, because I think he's a very, very good option to have. I think defensively, as a fullback, he's the best option England have. And there will be games in which he would be a very, very handy player to have to even start games. I think that's a risk that Southgate's after taking. One that will probably backfire because something always does backfire in England.
Cheers, Dale.
but look, you're right. He has fantastic options. People will argue probably in the comments that they name a few players I think is better than Wan-Bissaka. But you have fantastic attacking options. You don't have to bring all of them. You don't have to bring all of them because you can only use so many. 2, 3 needed maybe. But Wan-Bissaka should have been on the plane, 100%. Not just in the preliminary squad, but in the final cut.
I hear you. So more towards going up top then. Mason Greenwood made the cut. Phil Foden, Jack Grealish. Who would you be starting if you were an England fan going into the tournament? Because it seems Harry Kane's a stalwart. Someone who we actually spoke about when you were last on the show is Jadon Sancho, and that huge bias towards players that play in the Premier League when Jadon Sancho's got such good numbers. I mean, Tomori was another one. 3rd place with AC Milan. He was playing fantastically well for one of the biggest teams in Europe, but Ben White gets in ahead of him. So we'll talk about that actually. So what do you make of the bias towards Premier League talent over players who are starring abroad?
Yeah, I think it's very evident and clear to see with BT Sport. If you look at any kind of the Champions League or Europa League coverage this season, not just from BT Sport, but from any of the British broadcasters, they get on, say, former players to discuss the opponents and that, but it's quite clear they don't do their research. And they're just as unknown about the other team as the person sitting behind the screen. And it's a sense of arrogance, I think, total ignorance, and it doesn't help us. It doesn't help anyone. So yeah, look, I think that's also clear to see because I don't know how many times Gareth Southgate or other people have been on a plane to see Sancho this season. But I don't think you need to worry too much about what the Premier League is like in the standard Premier League when you're in the European Championships. Sancho has shown this season and before that he's a top player in the Bundesliga. It's not a bad league, and it's total arrogance to think that nothing lives outside the Premier League as well. Because I don't recall a time or many times when England won the European Championships.
Exactly, 100%. So just going towards the top. So we'll go from midfield to top 3 then, because Gareth Southgate does like to play a defensive midfielder, but in his preliminary squad, the likes of, like we say, Phil Foden, Jack Grealish, Mason Greenwood, Rashford, Sancho. The only one who really probably is 100% starting is Kane. Who, if you were an England fan first and foremost, and Gareth Southgate, who would you be looking at then? Because you've got Mason Mount as well, who I forgot to mention.
Well, yes, I from the outside, I'm hearing all this debate about this midfield 3 and basically going all out attack or going a bit kind of conservative in their approach. I would start with Declan Rice. I'm very much on the side that Gary Neville was on in terms of England can't play that way. It's not that they can't play that way, but it hasn't been ingrained in these players from a young age like it is in Spain and so on. There's no one saying that it's impossible. I'm sure there'll be games in which they can do it and win, but it's not the way these players were brought up to play. And it did this fascination with having to adapt that way is complete rubbish. And I think England should go out and play to their strengths. And Declan Rice, I think, has been good this season. He'd be a good player to protect the back four, and that'll be needed against top teams. I don't. You look, you have Mason Mount and you have all these other players. These are all options. You don't all have to start them. It's an international tournament, and on the bench, they're players who can change games. But I think England going out all attack, that wouldn't end well. That would you won't get far.
Well, we're not used to it going well anyway, so just at
No,
least
but
we'll have
but the
fun.
thing is, I do believe that England have a very good chance. Like looking at the squad, looking at the young players, and from the previous tournament, they can definitely build on that. I think Southgate's done a great job. I think he's done a really good job with England. And to be honest, a lot of people might have laughed at him at first, but he's done a really good job. And I don't think he'll listen to these claims that England will go all out attack. No, he
No,
won't.
I think you're right in the terms of maybe it is a little bit of a wake up call for England fans. In maybe it is best to play the way that England know how to play, and maybe it is just ingrained in these other countries just far more than it is in the English team. So I think it's a very good point that you're raising. So just before we go, then the future of England, we speak about these stars. You know, Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Mason Greenwood, Mason Matt, just so many good players. Do you think that England have really got some good stars for the future?
Yeah, huge, and it's been bubbling. It's been bubbling since Southgate kind of got into the job. To be honest, he's been bringing through those young like Foden. Foden's an exceptional talent. He's a generational talent. I think he's still very young, and he's dictating the pace of tempo of Premier League games. You know, the experience that he'll gain from this tournament again will kick on for the World Cup. England have a pool of young talent, and it shouldn't be about England will have problems if they're trying to shoehorn all these players into one team. That was the problem with the previous golden generation. There was also all this kind of demand to shoehorn um, Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard into a midfield. You know, that's the worst way to approach it. You need to look at the team, look at the strengths, and then take those players that you're not going to start and see how they can change games from the bench, because that bench is important when you go to your European Championships and changing games when they're not going your way, because you have to be able to react. Because Southgate's not an idiot either. He knows that there will be a few moments that won't go England's way. That's all part of a tournament, and you have to have then those players to react. Sancho, I don't think really the England should have a set starting lineup. There's so much quality there, and they can keep players fresh. You know, keep like the Sancho, Grealish. They don't all have to start.
Yeah, bang on. Dale, you've got me thinking that we're going to win the World Cup. I mean, the Euros and the World Cup. We'll win it all, but thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. And the infamous golden generation that you're referring to, Paul Scholes playing on the left just to
Yeah,
try and fit everyone into that team, and how they never won anything. Well, I don't know. So let us know what you think about the England squad and everything we've discussed on this week's Talking Points in those comments below. Dale, thank you very much for coming on. All Dale's links will be in the description. Stretty News, if you are interested in any Manchester United content, make sure you go and check them out. But from us, thank you everyone for watching today. Check out our socials. All of them will be in the description as well. Subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.